23-year-old Roy Gottler, who works as a reserve sergeant in the Israeli army, has mentioned that 50% of his colleagues did not turn up to work in the last week. That is, in the last week of April. And he also mentioned that if the proposed judicial reforms will go through, then almost all of his colleagues would not turn up to work. Well, we know Israel is considered to be one of the military powerhouses in the entire world. If the folks who are working for military do not show up to work, that's a huge problem. Traditionally, since its independence in 1948, Israel has been involved in multiple wars. Right from the 1948 Israel-Arab War till the 2014 war, there have been multiple instances where military has shown its dominance. Now the question is, why are military not coming to work? Why are military against the proposed judicial reforms? To understand that, we need to look into what are the reforms, and number two, why are the reforms introduced now? What happened in the last 5 years? Just a quick request, this is an important video. Please do share it in your network. I'm trying to keep these things as simple as possible and only refer to the facts. I'm not trying to add any of my opinions over here. So please do let me know if there is a personal point that I missed and if you want me to cover. So let's get started with what was happening in the last 5 years. In 2019, there were elections conducted twice in Israel. In 2020, 2021, 2022, elections were conducted once every year. So a total of 5 elections in the last 4 years itself. Why? Because no single political party could gain that majority, and also no two parties could come together and form that coalition to get that majority in the parliament. The reason is because of the ideological differences between different political parties and what they wanted from the government itself. If we even take a step back, in 2015, the government which was supposed to continue till 2019 was dissolved in 2018 itself. One of the reasons being, the then Defense Minister, Mr. Lieberman, was against one of the draft laws that were passed in the parliament, or Knesset, so to say, of Israel. And the draft laws were related to the ultra-Orthodox Jews' exemption from the military service. Every single Israeli has to serve in the military, and that's a mandate. However, there are exemptions to a small set of individuals who are coming from the ultra-Orthodox Jew community, because these guys study full-time religion and they are called as the Torah students. These Torah students have been historically given these exemptions. To start with, since Israel gained independence in 1948, they have been given these exemptions. At that time, there were close to 900 to 1,000 students of this religion, so it did not make sense to not give them exemptions. But now, there are close to 150,000 students who are studying religion. And when all of them are given exemptions, the other communities within Israel are not too happy about it. They say that, hey, while we are going and serving the country, why are such a large number of people given exemptions? And the ultra-Orthodox Jews community believe that it's important for them to study religion and make sure that Israel as a society follows these religions. So the two parties are always against each other. On one end, we see the highly religious group, which is on the extreme right, and the other one is the left group. So far in Israel history, all the governments were leftist or were little more central. But this is the first time where the government is more right-oriented, which means a lot of minority parties, religious parties, have now authority and a say in the government. They are a part of the coalition which created the government at the end of 2022. And they would of course propose these exemptions. But there is a catch in here. According to Israel's constitution, every single legislative action that is passed on in the parliament, every single administrative action or even an executive order that is given by the Prime Minister should be or will be reviewed by Supreme Court. And only if it passes the Supreme Court review, then it becomes a law. And of course, if these proposed exemptions are increased and then they are passed to the Supreme Court, there's a very high probability that Supreme Court would reject these proposals. So rather than changing the individual bills, the government now decided to change the underlying judicial systems itself, the authority and the power that Supreme Court possesses. When the government was formed at the end of 2022, in less than 10 days, they proposed these judicial reforms. And one of the first ones is to remove the entire judicial review of the laws that are being passed by the legislation. It's not only the change in the authority, they are also trying to tweak who gets and who becomes a judge. As of now, there is a committee which selects the judges within the Supreme Court. There is a committee of 9 members which is represented by the Bar Council representatives, members of the government, ministers, and also the current sitting judges. And there has to be a majority for somebody to be appointed as a judge. But now with the proposed reform, the government will have the majority say and they can actually have their judges appointed. So you can see that it is not just about the decision itself, but they are tweaking who is the decision maker. The third part that they are trying to tweak is also regarding how much of a say each one of these laws have on the ministers and their decision making. Right now, every single Israeli minister has a legal advisor, and these legal advisors are affiliated towards the attorney generals. Whatever they say, the ministers have to follow. They are trying to make sure that it becomes only an optional advice to the ministers. All these 3 proposed reforms will change Israel potentially from a democratic country to a dictatorship. And that is the precise problem of both the military and also one other major group in the country, that is the startup ecosystem. Israel, as we know, has a very strong startup and tech ecosystems, and it has taken a lot of years to develop this ecosystem. Well, as we know, Israel is a country itself, gives a lot of emphasis on education. Majority were immigrant Jews who are highly qualified and educated individuals. With the emphasis on STEM degrees, they could grow this entire tech ecosystem. Now, what these guys say is, if the democracy turns into dictatorship, there is no point, there won't be an equal opportunity for anybody who is talented. The laws would be in favor of religious minorities. So, the folks who are talented would leave to better opportunities in better countries. These guys are the major contributors to the taxes within the country. So with this group and the military folks who are also protecting the country from the external forces, if these 2 guys have a problem, then you can see that the government also is little hesitant with tweaking the laws. And that's the reason why they kept postponing these reforms. Now, whether these reforms will come into action versus not is a secondary question that we need to ask. But the most important thing is, who is the person who is benefiting from all of this? It's the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Because it doesn't matter for him who has the authority, but for him, he will still run the government and he can protect himself from majority of the corruption charges. Thank you so much guys for watching. Please do let me know if you have any questions, and I will share any single fact that I have gathered through my research to share my perspectives. Take care. See you again. Bye bye.